So, when exactly should you go to a therapist? Now, before we go down this rabbit hole, I just want to let you know that not everybody who goes into recovery necessarily needs a psychotherapist. As a matter of fact, I've met plenty of people that haven't gone through therapy that went into meetings and did just fine. So it's not necessarily for everybody, but let's try to give you some rules of thumb that may help you. Just keep in mind, that's what it is. The psychotherapist is somebody in your corner. You're paying for that person that's going to help you resolve issues. Now, what sorts of things would you go to a psychotherapist for? Well, some warning signs to kind of think about are that you're having a constant failure giving up your vice. So if you keep trying and trying and trying over again, even while you're inside of recovery and nothing seems to be working, that might be a good sign to go get yourself a person who specializes in addiction. So when you go looking for that therapist, you want to make sure that they have a background in dealing with sexual addictions, specifically the word addictions, because there are some sex therapists out there that don't deal with addiction models and they don't know how to handle you. Another thing might be if you have difficulty regulating your emotions. So, if you're constantly feeling like you're either punchy or you're just having a difficult time with depression, if you're having difficulty regulating those emotions and they're impacting your life, that's another reason why you may want to go seek a psychotherapist. When you're having persistent anxiety or stress, which is something that I had a lot of problems with. That's another reason to go see a psychotherapist because there's therapy techniques that are specific to dealing with those troubles. Another thing might be that you're just having difficulties outside of your, addiction itself. It might be that you're having difficulties at work. You might be having difficulties at school. Maybe you're having difficulties inside of your relationships. If any of those things are significantly being impacted, it's time to kind of realize that, hey, you know what? Everything that I've tried this far isn't working. Maybe I should seek outside assistance. And there are certainly therapists that deal specifically with those types of issues. How about sleep disruption? A lot of times we're having problems with either our sleep or even our appetite. Your appetite gets suppressed, or maybe you're possibly eating too much. In addition to, the porn addiction, if those things are consistent with you, yes, that's perhaps a sign that maybe you should be getting professional assistance. If you're deteriorating physical health, and this can happen as a result of, stress, anxiety, other types of negative emotions such as depression, if they're having a deteriorating effect on your actual body, it's time to get help. Another thing is when you're just feeling stuck, nothing seems to be working, and it always seems that you keep on coming back to the same time and place. And no matter what you do, you don't seem to be progressing at all. If that status, if it feels like you're never making any forward progress, yeah, it's perhaps time to be looking for some professional assistance. Suicidal thoughts is another reason. If you're having any suicidal thoughts, immediately go get some help. With isolation, that's another red flag because if you're constantly staying isolated from people all the time and never seems that you feel the motivation to get out of that isolated space, it's time to seek help. One thing that you can consider doing is seeking certain credentialing in your therapist. For example, CSAT, certified sex addiction therapist, may be appropriate if you're dealing with a pornography or sex addiction. It doesn't necessarily mean you always have to go to a CSAT. If your primary underlying condition seems to be anxiety or stress related, there is also people who specialize in cognitive behavior therapy, dialectic behavior therapy, and interpersonal behavior therapy. Any one of those skill sets can be beneficial for you, and certainly finding a therapist that deals specifically with those can be beneficial in your recovery. Dealing with somebody who works in addictive modeling, so they may not necessarily be a sex therapist or work exclusively with pornography addicts, but if they deal with the addictive model, that can certainly be beneficial. And as always, make sure that this is being covered under your insurance plan. If your insurance can pick up any of these types of providers, go for it. So I hope this gives you a little bit of help in trying to determine whether or not you need to seek a therapist. Sometimes the discovery of the need for therapy may not happen right away, so don't feel like you have to necessarily rush into it. If you get inside of a recovery room and you're starting to feel like, you know what, there's some things I really need to work out here, you know, let nature take its course. Let the discovery mechanisms that happen inside of your recovery determine whether or not you actually might need the therapy. Like I said, there's a lot of people inside of this space who do just fine without it. It's not necessarily needed for everyone, but it should certainly be explored. My name is Road to Recovery. Thank you for listening. Like, share, and subscribe. And if you need to reach me, you can DM me through X or email me at road, the number two, recovery, the number 11 at yahoo.com. Again, that's road to recovery at yahoo.com. Thank you and stay on that road to recovery.